welcome yet again to another episode of Finally Game Music. This is episode 141 and I am your host, Kristoffer Schenström. Today we're going to talk about narrative-driven games. So, what is a narrative-driven game? Well, story-driven, or more known as story-rich games, are a genre that is mostly characterized by its dynamic change where the story plot or elements such as added mechanics is a part of the game. So it's very similar to interactive storytelling, to say the least. And today I have picked 4 tracks from 4 different type of games. So today we're going to have a pretty large variety of type of storytelling. And we also have one requested song as well, which we're going to listen to. So a total of 5 tracks are what we're going to listen to today, and we're going to talk a little bit about the storytelling from each and every game, especially those I've actually played, because there are some here I haven't played. Requested song. But yeah, let's not dwell into this anymore. So let's start out with the first track of the week. So we're going to listen to Golden Hour, which is the main theme from the game Life is Strange. First song of this week, The Golden Hour, which is the main theme from the game Life is Strange. And when it comes to the soundtrack here, the music from this game is a little bit of a special one, as it does have a lot of music from many different licensed artists. But the original music for the soundtrack for this game was composed by the front figure of Sud Matters. And also, he is a Frenchman, is Jonathan Morali. The game was created by the French studio Dotnod Entertainment and was released in episodes, and also 5 of them, with the first chapter being released in the 29th of January 2015, and the last episode, so we had the full game, so to speak, was released the 20th of October 2015. The game was released initially for the PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, and the Xbox One, but was later also ported for Mac, Linux, iOS, and Android. And looking at the composer here, Jonathan, he is a composer, singer-songwriter, singer, and also the founder and the frontman of the indie rock band called Sud Matters. So usually when you're looking at the credits for this one, you can see Jonathan's name together in peripherals, Sud Matters, which is the band. So I guess a couple of his band members also were represented within this soundtrack, but I'm a little bit unsure here. But when it comes to the games, he has, however, only worked on Life is Strange OST, so his last release was therefore Life is Strange 2, the Collector's Edition, back in 2019. And this is a game, yet again, like the first game, is also released in multiple type of chapters. And other than that, we don't have that much more on Jonathan, other than he has worked with his music through Sud Matters. But when it comes to this game, so to speak, this one is a lot like, if people do recall, if you haven't played Life is Strange, you're basically playing the part of Max, or Maxine. She returns to her hometown Arcadia Bay after being away for 5 years, and on her return she gets to meet her old best friend Chloe Price. However, closely after Max's left, Chloe's father died, and she became friends with Rachel Amber, who helped her with the grieving. Unfortunately, Rachel disappears in these 5 years in a mysterious way, and then Max and Chloe, who reunited, decides to investigate her disappearance. And to your help telling the story and making hard choices during this game, throughout these 5 chapters, you will evolve certain powers. You will have the power to rewind time, for example, and play out certain functionalities within the game. And all this is basically just up to for your use, so you can get to know the story that has happened during these years. And I really did enjoy this game, and this is a game that kinda has another type of edge to it. Before Life is Strange, I played, for example, the Walking Dead Telltale's game. So returning to this one, you kinda have a similarity to it. You're still walking around in third person. You get to know the different kind of characters, and you will get to make choices based on what is presented to you. And I really did enjoy this in multiple ways, and I don't want to spoil the game in any way more than I've already said about the story, which is basically just introduction to the game, and it is also the backside of the box that you're able to read this part as well. So it's not much of a spoiler per se there. Now you know a little bit that kind of brings forth in the first chapter, so to speak. But I really do enjoy this game, and I highly recommend this one for this part. You have a great story told, and it is fascinating and mysterious, and it was kind of hard getting all the bits and pieces together, understanding the whole story, but all in the end it kind of comes through and you will get a choice out of it. This game has multiple endings. I myself I would never say never, but I rarely return to these type of games, because getting one ending is basically the road that I took. If I replay the game, most of the information I will already know, so that there wouldn't be that much of a difference, only in certain choices. For example, looking at Life is Strange, maybe you're choosing this or that will make a character appear in another scene, for example, and having just this one-time experience is really unique, in my opinion, and it creates identity, rather than me playing the same game over again, where story has such a central point, so to speak. So I highly recommend playing Life is Strange, playing it just once as well. If you're interested in the other endings, then go look at someone summarizing it over at YouTube, for example. I would never recommend somebody play a full game again just to make these small different choices that might have a bigger and really big impact on the story itself. But yeah, the next song coming up is actually the requested song. So this is a little comment from Karuchi. And he wrote this. As for the next episode, I would like to suggest Shadow of the Colossus, because it is a narrative game, but one that is narrated mostly through its music. The bouzouki in the opening theme is absolutely beautiful. A story-heavy games seldom grab me by the ears, so to speak. So none comes to mind right now, but looking through the list does not make it easier either. So we're going to listen to the main theme of Shadow Colossus, and the theme is called To the Ancient Land. To the Ancient Land from The Shadow of the Colossus, a song requested by Karuchi. Music for this game was composed by the Japanese Kao Otani. The game, it was developed by the Japanese internal Sony Computer Entertainment Japan's Product Development Number 1, or more known as the name Team Ico today. Shadow of the Colossus was initially released in the 18th of October 2005, and this was released then in the US and in Canada. Later in October it was released in Japan, and in February 2006 it was also released in Europe. And just like Ico, Shadow of the Colossus captured a lot of people's hearts with the story through gameplay and music, as the story itself is more of on the down low here. It's not like well written on top of your nose all the time and such. And for people who actually play these two games, know what I'm talking about. I myself have not played these two games, but I do know a lot of them. Well, not specifically exactly how everything is happening, but in Shadow of the Colossus I do know that your girlfriend dies in the beginning of the game, and you are basically going to like an altar and to the land of the ancients, where you basically place your girlfriend on top of an altar, and then you go around slaughtering giants, colossuses. And by killing, if I remember correctly, 12 of them, this kind of dream or prophecy of you getting a wish, which basically is going to awaken your girlfriend, takes shape. And yeah, that is basically the premises of the game. So yeah, I might get some of these informations wrong, because as I just said before, I have not played Shadow of the Colossus, or Ico for that matter, but I do own Shadow of the Colossus, but I haven't been able to actually get time to play it yet. First of all, when I actually got the game, I had like a super stressful time, and then I moved, and then I haven't had all my game consoles up and so on. So this is like the main problem, but also Shadow of the Colossus is a game that I really want to play. I've heard so much good about it. I've heard a lot of close friends and people from my childhood who talked well about this game, so I really want to get down and play this game. But yeah, due to the popularity anyway of the game, this caused the game to become like a hit and also get multiple greatest hit releases. And it also got a PS3 release in Japan in 2011, where it also got released on the PSN in US and in Europe. But there is also an Ico and Shadow of the Colossus collection that was released for the PS3 back in 2011, and in 2018 there were actually a remake released for the PS4. So looking at the composer here, Kao, he has a short list of games, but have worked for quite some time, with his first game being Philosoma, which was released back in 1995. And following that one up was Sky Odyssey from 2000, Shadow of the Colossus in 2005, Sengoku Basara, Samurai Heroes back in 2010, and lastly 428 Shibuya Scrabble back in 2018, together with the Shadow of the Colossus remake, of course. However, when it comes to Kao, it is not games that he is mostly known for as a composer. We do know the Shadow of the Colossus, it is an amazing soundtrack. Maybe we don't know that much about the other games. They seem more down low, not that like epic like Shadow of the Colossus. But he's mostly known for working with the scores for Godzilla and Mobile Suit Gundam Wing, for example. There are a lot more work that he has done for both anime and film, so I highly recommend, if you are interested in Kao, go check out all his work for both anime and films, for example, just to get a better glimpse on who he is as a composer. But it seems like he has a great variety of working with orchestras, especially just listening to the soundtrack for Shadow of the Colossus is just insane how good the music is. Even though I haven't played the game, I still have listened to a lot of the soundtrack here, because a lot of people have talked about it, so of course I'm going to listen to it. But yeah, So there's not much I can say other than that about, because I would just go and swing in the blind if I do talk more about Shadow of the Colossus. So I hope you guys can correct me if there are any wrong things about the plot, so people will know that part, of course, because it's always nice when you guys come in and correct me for these things that I'm not so sure about. So I'm just going from what I do remember, and I usually do remember things pretty much correctly, but just pretty much. I can still be wrong a lot of times, but when it comes to dates and numbers, I have those written down, and other than that, I'm just high-lifing everything else and just having a good time here in the podcast with you guys listening. And the next game that I want to talk about is a special one as well. It's just like a one-man army going on yet again. We have talked about it before, but not during the English version of this podcast. So we're going to talk more about Undertale as soon as we listen to Dating Start. Undertale and the track Dating Start. So this game was mostly created by one person, the American Toby Fox. He worked on programming, he worked on art, and also worked on music. But he also got a little bit of help from a couple of people as well. But he tried to keep the team as small as possible, as the more people, or as he quotes it, the more people he gets into the team, the more diluted the experience and game would be. But the game itself, it was released back in 2015 on the 15th of September and have been ported to most of the consoles ever since. When it comes to Toby Fox, he have worked on a couple of the games and their soundtracks ever since Undertale and Deltarune. Games such as Hive Swap from Act 1 in 2017, Song Inclusion in Wonder Song from 2018, Pokemon Sword, Pester Quest, Little Town Hero, and Escape Chasm in 2019. And lastly, Omori from last year. But it is quite interesting. We first of all, we took a third person, time adjusting, trying to get the story from the perspective of two characters within Life is Strange. Excuse me. And then we have more of a musical and kind of what are your interpretation of the story itself in Shadow of the Colossus. But here in Undertale, we have kind of a deep, easier-ish kind of understanding of what is going on, because you're making your own path and your own story in Undertale. A lot of people have definitely talked about this. Most of you guys, I would say like 95% of you guys know about the game Undertale already. But for you 5% who doesn't know about the game, it is graphically not an amazing game, but when it comes down to functionality of how combat works or how you interact with different people within this game, and also when it comes to the music, it is an amazing game. So if you can just put aside how the game looks, you will have an amazing experience when it comes to story. There are two different kind of routes for those who want to be like super precise with stuff. You can either go a full pacifist run where you don't kill anybody, for example, or you can go with another run called the genocide run where you basically kill everybody in the world of Undertale. So the thing that is pretty unique that most people like with this game is that you have actually the choices within this game. So for example, instead of having the classical like attack or use super move and stuff like that, you still have those, but you can also talk to characters, you can hug a couple of them. There are ways for you to solve these problems that you are met up with as you meet people, you get to new places. So there's a lot of different kind of puzzle solving within this game, and you have all this type of amazing sound to accompany you throughout your travels within this game. You get to meet a lot of different people, animals, even ghosts within this game. And everybody has like their own freaking tune, which is amazing with this game as well. So looking at the Dating Star specifically, this is actually a tune that is played when you meet up and starting befriending certain of some of the people within this game. So you have the characters Papyrus, Undyne, and Alphys, and it's also played with Bratty and Caddy's shop. The tune itself, it is and kind of shares the same melody with Snowdin Town and Shop from the game, but also the tune Hope and Dreams, which is basically one of my favorite tunes from the soundtrack as well. Also a returning one in Deltarune, you know. But yeah, I really do enjoy this one. I really enjoy the story a lot. And yet again, just like Life is Strange, of course you are able to play multiple runs within this game. I know there are some people who recommended playing multiple runs. But at the same time, I kind of don't want to do that. Just like what I felt with Life is Strange. But I think I might kind of come over that edge as well. Looking at Life is Strange, it kind of is. You will still have the same kind of experience. Looking at a game like Undertale, you will have like a pretty unique story every time you play, because, well, you can go around and either not kill everybody or kill everybody, or kind of do your own run, befriending and killing, or avoiding even that if you want to, certain people and animals and everything, ghosts. But I'm not going to talk about Nier Automata today, not from a musical perspective, but from a storytelling perspective. I would say that game is pretty amazing, because when you play that game, you are not required per se, but there are a lot of different endings you are able to get within this game. I don't if it's like 18 endings or something like that, but you are recommended, however, to play this game at least 3 times, because every time you're completing the game, and the game does not tell you that this whatsoever, you're basically completing the game and it kind of feels like I'm missing something. So either you're missing something and you want to just explore the world again, and that's why you're continuing to play. And also they do recommend you to play more as well, but they're not like super precise in what they mean with that. But when you play again, when you start up Nier Automata again, you're playing kind of the same story, but from a different perspective. And I don't want to go into detail more on that one, because it's way more fun for you guys to explore that one, what I mean by it, and what is going to happen. Because if I spoil that, I would say it kind of takes off the edge a little bit, and I don't want to be that guy, because I know I've been that guy a couple of times sometimes in this podcast, maybe spoiling a little bit. But yeah, I'm not going to spoil Nier Automata. I highly recommend people to play it multiple times. But from here, we're going from Undertale to a more modern type of game, which is more kind of drawn back, and I would say it's more of a slice of life kind of thing, because we're going to listen to Happy Together from the game Florence. And this was the nice tunes from Florence, and the track name was Happy Together. The music for this game was made by the British-Australian composer Kevin Penkin. The game it was created by the Australian studio Mountains, and the game it was released on the 13th of February 2018 and was initially released for iOS and Android devices, but was later also released on PC, Mac and Nintendo Switch last year. Looking at the composer here, Kevin do have a couple of compositions within his credit list, starting out with Defender's Quest, Valley of the Forgotten back in 2012, following with Norn 9, Var Commons, and Implosion, Never Lose Hope back in 2015, and he also is credited with Defender's Quest 2, Mist of Ruin, but I haven't really found that much information. I haven't found like a true download to it, but it is on his credit list, even though I haven't found any physical evidence of the game itself. And in 2018 he worked on This Is the Police 2 and Florence, and in 2019 Rebel Cops and Demo Reborn, and lastly Necrobarista from last year. And it's quite interesting looking at Kevin's resume here, because he has worked with a lot of different interesting composers. For example, he has worked in collaboration with Nobuo Uematsu, and this for the Defender's Quest 2, Mists of Ruin, but also a couple of other titles as well that I don't want to go into specific cases on. I want you guys to look that one up specifically so you know and utilize those research fingers that I'm using sometimes as well. But I kind of still want to keep interest of this Kevin composer for you guys. But at the same time, he has worked with a lot of impressive musicians and orchestras from what I've seen. And he does not only work on games either. He has been working for animes and film as well. And looking at the soundtrack here for Florence, I would say that it is one of the most beautiful and amazing soundtracks that I've ever listened to while playing the game. And the game has also been nominated for BAFTA in 6 different categories, where music was one of the categories it was nominated for. And I would say it kind of proves the point on how good this soundtrack is. Because it is a really kind of emotional type of soundtrack here. But when it comes to storytelling with Florence, it is way more different than other games. First of all, this game was initially released for handheld. It is the people who are behind Monument Valley, which is behind Florence. And in Florence, you're basically playing the girl Florence, and she's not that happy with life at this point when you start out the game. And you're basically just playing her daily life. You're using the touch screen for the mobile devices to kind of just get her days going. Maybe it doesn't sound that amazing, but they implement daily activities into fun and interesting interactive like gameplay mechanics. So for example, when you're starting dating, for example, because as the theme or the track name here kind of enthusiasts that they are happy together. Yes, she's going on dates as well. Now you kind of see a red thread here going in with all the different names we're kind of going for. We're sacrificing girlfriend, resurrecting her, we start dating because maybe she died, I don't know. And we find someone new where we are happy together. So just looking at this, you're doing her daily lives, you're following along with Florence and what happens with her life and how she finds herself within this world through the eyes of Florence that you are playing, but also through the mechanics. You understand these actions way more when you're interacting with Florence like you do. And for example, Level Design Lobby have taken up Florence as a great example for great level design and game mechanics when it comes to games as well. So I really do enjoy. I actually played this one before. Max Pearce took it up on his podcast and Level Design. And I really did enjoy. This is a premium game, so you pay one fee and you can play it how much ever you want. But this is just a small experience for one time. But it's a really nice and neat experience, and it's really nice to see what happens to Florence throughout this time. But this is more of a streamlined type of, so there's not that much story narrative driven mechanic that do change a lot, but you're interacting with the story on a whole other level that you haven't done in another game before, not to my experience at least. So this is why I highly recommend Florence to everybody to play this one. It's not an expensive game because it is a shorter experience, but just having that experience from game perspective will enrich in your life. I can guarantee it. It will be interesting to play. And yeah, that was Florence. Now on to the last track of the week. And this is one of my favorite tracks till date from a game. And it all comes down to this specific moment within this game as well. I'm not gonna spoil which game because we're just spoiling the band and the track name. So we're going to listen to Old Gods of Asgard and the song Take Control. Take Control. Rising greenery, fading in a children play. Twilight games in the town called ordinary. An eye of light reveals a gateway to doomsday. Of reality, something passes through the stars, shifting walls into regions of real fantasy. For evil holds you in its own false alarms. Old Gods of Asgard with Take Control. This is an amazing track in my opinion. I just love this freaking song, especially the part where this song is played. And for you guys who have played the game Control, which this song comes from, know exactly what I mean. So yeah, I don't think they will argue that this is a bad song either, most likely. So when it comes to the soundtrack for the game Control, it was made by the Finnish composer Petri Alanko and the Danish composer Martin Stig Andersen. However, this song was actually composed and played by the Finnish band Poets of the Fall, where Old Gods of Asgard is just like their alter band within the universe of Control, but also Alan Wake, which is a really nice kind of red thread throughout the games as well. It's just super fun to see these things happen, in my opinion, and especially with the DLC in Control, where Alan Wake is actually coming to meet Jesse. I'm a little bit unsure about the meeting part though, but they are in the same game at least. But yeah, when we're looking at Control here, Control was developed by the Finnish studio Remedy and was released on PC, PS4, and Xbox One, and this was happening on the 27th of November 2019. And yeah, looking at the composers here, we're actually going to talk a little bit about all the different kind of composers I named before. So looking at Petri's first game, I'm able to find a date on at least, because looking at some other lists, we can find a couple of games that kind of is before, but I can't find information backing it up. But looking at the days I could find, it is the first game that he worked on was for Remedy's Alan Wake back in 2010. And during his time as a composer thus far, he has worked on multiple titles for companies like Remedy, Red Lynx, and Wooga. Peter has also worked on one game specifically for Supercell. And for you guys who know Supercell, it's a Finnish mobile company. And yeah, so looking for the specific ones for Remedy, he has worked on Alan Wake, Death Rally in 2011, Alan Wake American Nightmares, I almost said wrong there, from 2012, and Quantum Break 2016, and lastly Control. And as named before, he also worked for Red Lynx as well, who is a studio famous for the Trials series. And Peter worked on Trials Evolution Gold Edition back in 2013, Trials Fusion back in 2014, and Trials of the Blood Dragon 2016, and lastly Trials Rising back in 2019. And looking at the other composer, Martin here, he has a much smaller list of games, but there are some really big names on this one that most of us would recognize as well. So first of all, we have Martin, who started out by working at the Danish studio Play Dead, where he composed the music for both Limbo back in 2010 and the other game Inside, which released 2016. Following up with the Swedish Machine Game Studios and their game Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, back in 2017, and then the American company and studio Crystal Dynamics and their game Shadow of the Tomb Raider back in 2018, and then back again to Machine Games to work on Wolfenstein, and then with the Youngblood game back in 2019, and then Remedy with Control. And looking at the band here, Poets of the Fall, they have returned multiple times within Remedy's games here, starting out with Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne back in 2003, where they basically did the ending theme for the game, and that track was called Late Goodbye. Later, they worked on 5 songs for the game Alan Wake, another ending theme for the remake of Death Rally, which is a game I really did enjoy and loved a lot. The game was also released for iOS, for example. That's where I played it. It's not available anymore, which sucks. There was also one song made by a non-Remedy game, and that is Roadshard, which was released back in 2014, also a mobile game. And then we're back at Remedy, where they did 2 songs for Alan Wake's American Nightmare, and lastly they did 2 songs that are implemented in the game Control, where this one is basically played on your nose in the game, and it's 7 minutes long of just pure epicness in my opinion. I've listened to this song so freaking many times after I play the game. It's just insane. I can't even count it. I wouldn't even be confused or anything else if this would end up on my top 10 list during this year's mostly played songs on Spotify. Because damn, I love this song so freaking much. I don't want to speak directly more about the specific point where this one is played, because I, yet again, want to leave that to you guys. But the other song they have implemented within Control is The Dark Disquiet, which is a song from the original album by Poets of the Fall. So that's not a song by the Old Gods of Asgard, which is just like the world's, like, what to say, like, alter ego of Poets of the Fall. So it's just 2 guys playing. You meet these guys in Alan Wake. So play Alan Wake if you want to know more about the Old Gods of Asgard. It's just super fun and super exciting in my opinion. But yeah, when it comes to Control, this is another type of storytelling. Now we're playing like more of an action game coming in here. So we're playing Jesse Faden, who is basically heading to this bureau of weird shit going on. I don't remember the actual name of it. But it's like a bureau for like specific phenomenons where nobody can actually explain it. And for people who know this, the lyrics for Take Control play a huge part within this game universe as well. So it's kind of a meta coming into the storytelling here. And yeah, within this game, you will get like glimpses and pieces all the time of the story itself. So as you play along with this game, you don't really know what's going on. You can see a part of the ending, you can see a part of the beginning, and you have no way in the beginning of this game to kind of puzzle this through. You need to play and continue the main story of this game. There are also side quests and stuff like that you can do within the game as well, because you do meet a lot of different kind of people, and you will get to put puzzle pieces together to make up the story within this game. This is like a more of a Metroidvania-esque gameplay with a third-person camera. Not within, but with a third-person camera. And I really did enjoy this one. It is a fun universe to be in. You're having a weapon that is more like a weapon customizable with magnets. I think that is the best idea of it. It is a weird thing, but this game is also very weird. That is why I kind of like the story so much within this game, because nothing is really like super obvious in any way, and having this side character, which is just like a Finnish he's a Finnish janitor, and you just love him because he's even though he's kind of a weird one and he swears a lot, but he's okay. He's super fun. And he knows a lot of things. He's like your owl from Zelda Ocarina of Time, and he's just like he's so far off being like a true knowledge bank like you get from the owl in Ocarina of Time. He's like the other aspect of the whole list of sidekicks that could join you in on your epic adventure. I just love that within this game. But yeah, so these are many different kind of ways to kind of grasp and get in stories when we're talking about narrative-driven games. Looking at the examples they did pick up here, Last of Us was one of the bigger ones that usually a lot of sites took up as like one of the best narrative-driven games out there. There's a lot of reference going to Telltale games as well, as they just drive through and you make smaller choices which have big impacts. You don't have that much of a big impact. You can't do a lot of things to the story within Control. You either win or lose, basically, because you die, for example. So you don't really do that much, but you kind of make the story of how many side quests you're doing. You're building up information about the world and trying to understand what is going on in this weird place. So that is the thing you kind of earn going on with a more open world narrative driven perspective. In that case, you can get the characters or the players, so to speak, more involved in the game and the story. For example, we haven't picked a song from an MMO, for example. MMOs are very narrative driven, but they are very driven as long as the players themselves are feeling the drive to do so. Because you don't have to walk around and explore everything. You can just go from dungeon to dungeon, for example, in World of Warcraft. But during these dungeon raids you're doing, you find lore, you find information about the world. You get to talk to a lot of people outside of the dungeons within the world. And you can talk to them about, like, everything. It almost feels like everything, at least. But there's so much information out there in the world for you guys to just explore and enjoy, if you want that type of like information when you play. Some of us, like me, just like to go wild and just be brainless, chaotic damage everywhere. Weird thing to say, but yeah, I do enjoy just killing stuff and just having fun with what's going on. Not having to read a wall of text or listen to a long monologue where I fall asleep while playing and such. I really like having to go back and forth, and Take Control is a good example for that. Take Control grabbed me by the ankles and just swung me around in the room, and I had so much fun with this game. And I do believe that there are interactive games out there in many shapes and sizes that you guys like a lot. So if you guys missed commenting on this episode and you do have narrative-driven experiences that you want me to get to know more about, for example, or want to listen to the music from, then go ahead and just make a comment, because I definitely want to have more games to explore. And I want to hear you guys more as well, you guys who are the listeners. What games do you like when it comes to this part? What was the latest game you played that was narrative driven and that grabbed you by the ankles and swung you around in the room? I want to hear this because it's super interesting. But yeah, that was everything for this week. I just felt that I wanted to talk a little bit more about the games and talk about the narrativeness within these games, because there are so many different ones. So of course it's going to be a longer episodes as well, and I hope you did enjoy this one. And if you did enjoy this one, there are other episodes of Finally Game Music, and you'll find those on our homepage, Videospelsklubben.se, or in Spotify or in your closest podcast app. Feel free to follow and comment on one of our social medias. Just following and writing comments helps a lot for more people to find this amazing podcast. And you can do that either on Facebook or on Instagram, and just search for Finally Game Music and you will find it. If you would like to hear your name within one of these episodes, then feel free to request a song for an upcoming episode by commenting on any of the social pages or through Videospelsklubben's own Discord. Link to that one is on the homepage. You can also support this podcast for future content and quality upgrades, but also in the end, future composers by becoming a Patreon. And our current awesome backers that we have today is Mikael Sjöberg, Andreas Nilsson, and Daniel Onemark. So thank you so much for being a part of this. It really helps me a lot. Links to where you can either buy or support the composers behind the music that we heard today, you'll find those in our main post at videospelsklubben.se. And the next episode, or next theme, so to speak, is going to be on the composer, and the composer is Tatsuyuki Maeda. So until the next episode, have a great one, everybody!